This is Graham's Tales. And how did this start? Well, I was taking a sabbatical from work. Graham had just retired about a year ago, and we decided to catch up. And we were hanging out, and we were watching movies together in our living rooms and going out to dinner. And when you spend any amount of time with Graham, Graham will tell you stories. And he's the only one I know in my life who actually has too many stories. And when you're hanging out with Graham, Graham says, "Oh yeah, there was a time when I went there and there was a dead body in the kitchen and it was bleeding out and I got it all over my shoes and my face." And after a while, you're kind of going, "Graham, I don't want to hear. Tell me more. I'm really curious, because you don't want to know, but you do want to know." So after a while, I finally said to Graham, "We should shoot these." And I think it was more of about us being ready to tell these stories in our lives. Graham was ready to talk about his work because he was retired, and I was ready to go film something. And we decided to say that there would be no expectations, that if these things turned out to be crap, we would hide the tapes. I would hide the tapes under my mattress, and no one would ever see any of this, and we could go away and say, "Whew, lucky we made some crappy films, but no one will have to see it." We decided that these would be raw and handmade, homemade looking, but not sloppy or lazy. So that was really our guiding principle. We decided that we would just do it with what we had, and that that real life was going to be far more interesting than anything that I could make up or that we could spend $50 million on. If the story came out and says, "Yeah, I learned something. Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about it," but that's what people do. That's how they die. And that's really what a Graham's Tale is all about. Graham and I drive around San Francisco. We get out of the car. We spend a lot of time talking. So I know what most of he has an inventory of stories. I know what most of the stories are, and we'll just drive to the park or drive to a parking lot, and at that point we'll say, "Hey Graham, tell me the story about the evictions here. This seems to be a good place for it." So that is our artistic process, and it is an artistic process because us walking around and discussing these stories and him telling me the stories and me kind of trying to help shape the stories, most of the time I'm trying to decide, I think the story starts here and I think the story ends here. So it is completely improvised. If it looks like, and most of the stories are sort of, the takes are unrepeatable. So a lot of what you're seeing is a first take or a second take. And and that's the beauty of the unscripted, because this is a real story that Graham is having to dredge up from his memory. So I think that's one of the beauties of Graham's Tales, and I think it's very obvious, and it's very important for you to realize that it is unscripted, that this is someone's memories, and for someone to have this many memories is, I find astounding. Graham is the only person that I know who I really think has too many stories. I would say I would go to work every day and work on a computer. Graham would go to work every day and he would collect stories. He would collect bodies, and he would collect a story with each body. That's what we're talking about here.